Welcome back to 23-Minute Reads with me, Maya D. This is kind of like my virtual book club because in these 5 minute or so videos, I share with you my takeaways from my current reading. Right now, that is Teaching to Transgress by Bell Hooks. As a part of the 23 to 23 challenge, I'm reading 23 minutes per day, every day, as an action of self love, as an investment into myself, and as a way of providing myself with some consistency in an ever changing world. Hoping that you will join me along in this journey by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and dropping some comments down there in that comment section so that there's an actual dialogue going on. Having in mind that while I have several decades of experience as an educator, performer, and researcher, I'm not the know-all be-all for this book. I'm simply providing a space for dialogue. Well, this week I only got to page 20, in part because I had a hard time deciding what book to read. You can help me out with this by dropping some suggestions down there in that comment section. Because then I still had to deliver. I had to deliver. I still had to order and wait for it to be delivered. I still have my 3 takeaways. Let me get my notes. Takeaway number 1 is privilege. The quote from Bell Hooks reads, "My teachers were enacting a revolutionary pedagogy of resistance that was profoundly anti-colonial." In the introduction, Bell Hooks remembers her early childhood experience and describes it in a way that I would say was holistic and culturally relevant, because she also writes, "My efforts and ability to learn were always contextualized within the framework of generational family experience. Certain behaviors, gestures, and habits were being traced back." This type of student experience is also mentioned in one of our books, Dance on the Historically Black College Campus, and reminded me of my own privilege in relation to my educational experience. As a proud product of the Baltimore City public school system, I attended mostly or predominantly black schools. My educational experience was both one of nurturing and challenge. My pre-collegiate education imbued me with a certain level of critical thinking that sometimes surpassed that of my degreed colleagues, having in mind that I was someone that didn't go directly from high school into college. As a current educator, this book reminds me of my privileged educational experience and to use that as a tool, as a guide for educating others in a way that is also critical, inclusive, nurturing, and challenging, regardless of whether they look like me or not. Takeaway number 2 is resistance. The quote reads, "As a classroom community, our capacity to generate excitement is deeply affected by our interest in one another, in hearing one another's voices, in recognizing one another's presence." A community is made up of its some parts, right? And I feel like it's important for students to understand that their lived experience, their knowledge becomes a educational resource for the classroom. At the same time, they can also offer a certain level of resistance because we are asking them to transgress their boundaries into what is unknown. It was nice to hear this mentioned in the book because I am currently teaching students who are from that No Child Left Behind era that didn't always encourage inquisitive, critical thinking, out of the box thinking. So it was nice to hear that I am not alone in facing that resistance. But to be clear, this book was written prior to No Child Left Behind. The resistance was there before, it's still here now, and we're still going to deal with it. Takeaway number 3 is healing service. The Engaged Pedagogy section offers a quote from, and I'm going to need help with pronouncing this name, Thich Nhat Hanh, and that quote reads, "The practice of a healer, therapist, teacher, or any helping professional should be directed towards his or herself first, because it is the helper, because if the helper is unhappy, he or she cannot be helpful to many people." Knowing your content plus being healthy and whole is the key to not spreading sickness of the mind to others. Hooks noted that in higher education, it can sometimes be a haven for book smart people who have little to no social skills. And this makes me wonder if this contributes to the stylized academic writing that can sometimes be challenging for people to read, especially people who are outside of academia, and if this perpetuates a certain level of exclusiveness. Not inclusiveness, but exclusiveness. Teaching can be a sacred practice where the educator is interested in both the intellectual and the spiritual growth of their students, where students are active participants in the process, not passive consumers. But this requires us educators to be conscious and intentional about how we disseminate information. Thanks for staying to the end of this video. Remember to like, subscribe, drop some comments down there. That was all 3. Stay blessed, spread a good word, and I'll see you again next week.